Okay, Miriam, we will kick off and I'm sure people will join us as we go along. So Miriam Gozalo, thank you very much for joining us today. So this is Miriam, who works for BP, and she's joining us with the Talent Tap today for one of our Zoominars, talking about her career in engineering and what path that has taken for her. So as I say, Miriam, thank you very much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure that everybody who gets to listen to this Zoominar will find it really interesting and inspiring. So would you start off by telling me a little bit about what your role now is and what you do?
Yes, definitely. So thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me, and hello, everyone. So please raise any questions. I want this session to be super dynamic, so if any question, please raise it. So Miriam Gozalo. So I'm currently working in BP, and I'm working as a global product manager for electrification. That sounds like a different role from what we think about when we think about engineering. But I can tell you more about it later. So basically, I work in a new part of BP. So energy needs to change. If we want to keep power in the world, we need to power it with different energy. So I work in that different energy in electrification. So I work developing and designing the products for electric vehicles to charge on the go, at home, etc. So that's what I do together with my team. On my team, I follow my team. They are the key part of it, and that's what I do today.
Fantastic. A very groundbreaking and current, obviously, area for development right now. And I know BP is undergoing very big changes. How does that role that you're in now, particularly with these enormous changes, I imagine it's very fundamental, how does that fit into the organisation as it is and as it's developing?
So BP really wants to be a pioneer in changing how do we consume energy and how do we move the company from what it is today to a company that reaches net zero in 2050. So we understand that society needs a different way of consuming energy, and we're making it happen. So electrification team is working as one of the pillars for BP to reach that goal of net zero in 2050. So we are the low carbon businesses, the new ones that we are creating. So my team is creating the products that the consumers will consume in the future and today and in the future to make sure that the company can walk towards the net zero in 2050. So there's one key goal, big milestone we have in 2030. So we need to have 70,000 charge points in the ground in 2030. So that's a lot. So that's one of the key goals of my team. And it is not only the charge point for the electric cars to charge, it's also the digital apps that the customer needs to charge. It's all the customer experience we want to create, overarching that experience. So that's how it fits into the strategy.
Fantastic. As an electric car driver, I am very excited to hear that there are going to be 70,000.
Okay, which car are you driving?
I have a Tesla. And it's
wow.
I love it. It's great. It's really, really good. We will never ever look back. That's for sure.
No, exactly. That's what you feel when you drive something that it is not a car. It is more like a technology. It's a technology with four-wheelers. It's technology with four-wheelers.
100%. Yeah, it's really, I find it very exciting, these developments. And so, did you always plan to have a career in engineering? And if so, do you expect it to go the way that it's gone?
So the good point with engineering, so first of all, I don't think I was sure I wanted to be an engineer when I was making the decision to go into the uni. So I was thinking carefully. I'm also a musician. So I studied that since I was 9 years old. So I was growing with kind of two parallel worlds. One, it was the formal education, and the other one was the music. So I really wanted to be a musician. That was it. Because I love to create, I love to play, I love the arts, the artistic part of it. But then my parents were really pushing me to say, okay, you can do both, you can try both, and then choose what you like more. So I entered engineer, and then I discovered, hey, I can also create here. So I can create things here. I can create things with my hands. I can create things by coding and programming. So yeah, so I was not expecting to like it, but I love it. And until today, I might say that has been one of the best decisions in my life, just to listen to my parents and say, okay, I want to be a creative. I want to use my creativity in my daily job, but you can be an engineer and be creative. Yeah. So yeah.
It's really exciting to hear you say that, because I think people often think of engineering as scientific and physical, technical, and we don't appreciate the obvious creative elements of that. And it's really interesting that you managed to recognize those elements and combine those two interests and skills for yourself. So so when you went into further education, what did you start? What was your original degree, or wherever you went from school?
So in the uni, you mean? So I study electrical engineering and computer science. So it's kind of the combination. So it's about creating both with my hands or with like the code in the computer. So that has definitely opened me all the doors in my professional career. So that has been like a change in my career. So by being an engineer, and you were saying before, it is not that clear how many doors you can get open in your professional life, but being an engineer. But I think engineering is about a way of thinking. So when I left the uni after 5 years, I was thinking, okay, what have I learned after all this time I spent in the university? And then I was thinking, what I have learned is how to solve complex problems, because I mean, you learn and you study a lot of different subjects. But I was thinking about, I have learned how to break down problems into pieces that I can solve. And I can actually, I'm not afraid of the unknowns. I'm not afraid of complex problems. That is, I think, what an engineer can do.
And so when you left university, where did your professional career start?
Yes, so when I finished my degree in Spain, and then I took the luggage and I flew to Sweden because I wanted to be a different engineer. So I was thinking, like, how can I differentiate from all the hundreds of thousands of engineers in Spain? And I was like, okay, I think I need to go where there's like really high quality engineering. So I took my luggage and flew to Sweden to find my first job there. So I think a big tip here is that my first job, I was expecting to be in a big company, like big name, and but I got like limited budget. I could live there for 3 months on my own, and if I didn't find a job, I needed to fly back. So then I found a job in a startup. So it was a cloud computing startup. So today the cloud world is really, really common. Back in 2008, I thought the founder of my company invented it, because nobody was speaking about cloud. It was the first phase of the cloud life. So I work in cloud computing in a startup, and the big tip is like, please, if you can, work in a startup, because there is where you really learn everything about businesses, everything about how to run a company, how difficult it is to get a customer in, how difficult it is to keep the customer. So you learn everything.
So did you find, working with a very small setup, that you were able to access and experience lots of different elements of that industry or that business, and be able to see
exactly. So yeah, exactly. So by working in so it always has pros and cons. For me, it was a fascinating first experience. So I was getting there, like coming from the university, I was new to everything, the professional life. But then I found by getting into a small company, I mean, I felt like a family, so that helps to get into the professional life. But also I realized after a couple of years, I learned so much there. So because actually you are a few people that need to do everything in a company. So from the contracts to the marketing campaigns, to defining the product roadmap, to do reconciliation, finance reconciliation at the end of the month.
Very interesting. And I'm assuming you didn't speak Swedish.
I didn't by the time I landed there in Gothenburg, but Sweden is a place that if you really, well, I think it is everywhere. If you really want to be part of the society, you need to learn the language. So after kind of a year, I learned Swedish. So I was able to speak with my my colleagues. Everyone speaks English in Sweden, but I thought it was really polite, respectful to really learn the language and be part of the society.
Absolutely. And so what led you, because obviously that was a very positive experience, what led you to leave Sweden? What was the opportunity that arose, or what made you decide to move on from there?
It was the darkness. It was too dark there. So if you think about, 9 months a year, you only have 3-4 hours of light, and the sky is gray. I'm coming from Spain, right? You can feel it in my accent. So for me, 300 days a year, I need to see the sun. So it was really difficult for me. So I think it was an important decision to be back to Spain, because it was in the middle of the crisis of the 2010. But then I thought, okay, I was feeling I closed one part of my professional career, and I was ready to move forward. So I moved to Spain without a job again. I just took the luggage and flew back. But I had a goal. So I learned, I'm an engineer and I study engineer, but then I love businesses. So what I did when coming back to Spain was studying an MBA. So I joined a business school just to really master the business part of my background.
Fantastic. And so what do you think is the career highlight that you have achieved so far?
So for me, it's about having lived in 3 different countries, and I have worked in 7 different roles and in 3 different companies in the last 12 years. I think that's the big highlight. And that means that in my professional backpack, I have a lot of experiences. I've learned from a lot of people because I have been able to share and learn from quite different cultures, quite different people. I think that's the big highlight, is to explore I think I have explored the professional life.
So what kind of person do you think you need to be to do your job? What are the primary skills that you feel that that you and your successful colleagues bring to the role?
So my current role, so you need to be quite creative, because we are creating a business that it is new for everyone. So we don't have the University of Electrification. So that's something that is being created by people working in there, right? So you need to be creative. You need to be, you shouldn't be afraid of the unknowns. So you really need to be someone who wants to explore, that can fail, but really stand up again and pivot from one idea to the other. I think you also need to be kind of a team player, because the world today is for those who play and work in a team, as part of a team. So I think those are really, really important parts. And you need to be a good listener, because everything is new. You need to learn from everything happening around. So you need to really listen what's happening, learn from the people who's around you.
Absolutely. And obviously, Miriam, you're not very old. You've achieved a great deal, I think, in probably quite a short career so far. Do you feel that young people approaching a career path like yours now are facing different challenges to the ones that you would have faced, or do you feel that it's still quite similar?
Well, I think, at least I still feel that normally people in the university don't have enough information about how to explore the professional life. So what should be my first step? What should I do to get into the professional life? And I think that still happens today. I was not clear what I wanted when I left the university, because you study so many subjects and you can be so many things that you really need to start narrowing that the careers portfolio. So I think that's also something that I'm seeing today. So I would really recommend to ask. So I didn't ask that much. I was really brave to take my luggage and going to Sweden just to try to find myself. But I would really recommend the students to ask as many people they know. There's LinkedIn is a really good tool just to see what people are doing in the different roles, because normally you get your career, the role name, and then you have like an explanation on what you are doing. Yeah. So I think that's a challenge that people face today, but there are tools today more than before learn what the different roles are doing.
And obviously, we hear a lot about recruiting women into engineering. Do you feel that that is changing and that there are more women in your profession, particularly with the changes towards away from fossil fuels, for example, and in very innovative fields such as you're working in?
I think there are more and more, what I'm really happy to see and hear about. But I think it should be more, even more. And the reason why is because I don't think when we speak about engineering, we explore and we explain how wide the options and the opportunities are, how many different engineering roles you can study. So you can be a mechanical engineer and design a Tesla, and then you can buy it. Or you can be a software engineer and you can design the Tesla dashboard inside the car that controls every single piece into the car. So, and from that, you can be also an engineer who is looking at your thermostat at home just to make sure that you optimize the consumption of your energy. So there's so many opportunities in engineering. I really think that it is the future, and there's a big role for engineers to play in the future and design in the future, and those are big words. Like if you're an engineer, whether you're female or a male, you will be having part of designing and building the future of whatever field you work in. So I think it should be more female engineers. The reason why is because normally we have that additional creativity. That's my personal opinion, and that's really critical to the roles that we need to develop today.
And do you think that there are fundamental changes that businesses or institutions for education could be doing to attract more women to the industry?
I think education itself. So I think more of these sessions, trying to open up the unknowns, so like, trying to give a definition of the unknowns, what it is, how the professional life looks like, what are the roles I can approach if I'm an engineer, what is engineering? So I think if we go and tell people when they're in the school, in the high school, actually we can help to get more female engineers in the university.
And I think that would probably cross boundaries for all people for whom engineering might be appealing, to actually, as you say, rightly, to give that depth of understanding of what engineering, the breadth of engineering across everything.
Definitely.
So we've got you back to Spain from Sweden, and where did you go from that position, and what led you to BP? Did you work for BP in Spain, or was that something when you came to the United Kingdom?
Yeah, before joining BP, I worked in Telefonica, so in O2, and I was working as a project manager with like an international project. So we were helping Telefonica to develop the network connections in 60 different countries for a specific customer. So that was my role. But then after finishing my MBA that I did while working in Telefonica, then I joined BP through a graduate program. So I was not expecting to work in energy actually, because I was coming from technology. Normally you have a faster pace of innovation. It's different pace. I thought energy was like a mature market, nothing happening there, a little bit boring. So I was like, oh yeah, I don't know if I will join. But then the graduate program was helping me, or was providing me an opportunity to learn about the end-to-end business. So I told you when I came back from Sweden, I was like, I love business. I love to see the end-to-end, to control, like to see the product in the innovation or the ideation phase, and then seeing how customers consume it. So yeah, BP was offering me that through the graduate program. That is an amazing one. It's a program where you can face yourself different roles. In my case, was 3 different roles in 3 different businesses. And at the end of the day, you can get the full understanding of the value chain. In this case, it was the fuel value chain. So I work in pricing. So I understood how BP makes money. So then I work in retail. So I understood how the customers, who pays the salaries of BP employees every day, people going into the forecourts and refueling. And then I jumped into a refinery. That was an amazing, one in a lifetime opportunity. And in the refinery, I learned how the product is produced, how it is refined. coming from the crude vessels down to the gasoline we can consume in the forecourt. So that was an amazing opportunity to learn all that in such a short period of time. It was 6 years. But then somehow I was feeling I was not fully aligned with what I think the future of an energy is going to look like. And I think a big tip for me is that you always need to define your career path, and you need to be super aligned with what you think and you feel is the right thing to do. I think the right thing to do is to go into the greener energy pathway, and that's the reason why I moved into electrification.
Fantastic. Going from, as you say, in Sweden, for example, a business based around the cloud, and obviously a very physically intangible thing, into a refinery must have been an enormous change and contrast. What was the most challenging part about that transition, and the great difference between those two experiences?
That's a really good question. So in the first role, as you said, it is intangible. You think about cloud and you sell cloud computing power to customers. Fine, you cannot hurt anyone by selling that, right? Mm-hmm. But then you go into a refinery, and those are big words. Because actually a refinery, as I call it, I don't know if you say that in English, like a Swiss watch. Like everything needs to work specifically, like at the right temperature, at the right pressure, the right variables in the different products. So everything needs to be aligned. So when I joined the refinery, I got a lot of responsibility. I was responsible to produce the products, so gasoline, jet, and diesel, and I needed to sell them to the market. And the market was requesting specific qualities I needed to meet. So I went from the intangible to the pure tangible with a lot of zeros if something was wrong.
Very significant amount of responsibility, I would imagine,
exactly.
On your shoulders at that point. But fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Now, we've obviously talked about the skills, the primary skills that are important for your career. Are there any additional skills that you feel are particularly valuable? Possibly not even to do with engineering, but just generally to do with progressing, particularly through large businesses like BP. Any tips that you would particularly give young people to be honing particular skills?
So I think you need to keep humble across your entire career. I always follow the same pathway when I go into a new role, that is opening my ears and my eyes, listening and looking around and learning super fast. But even though you learn and you feel that you know more than the rest of the people surrounding you, you need to keep humble and you need to share. So that's kind of the soft skills that nobody tells you how to. So if you keep humble, you keep learning, and you share what you have learned, then you will be an amazing team player. And then, I mean, you can go higher in the organization, or like you can stay where you are, but you will definitely enjoy the professional life, because you will have good colleagues and you will create really good network in your professional life.
What tips would you give? And I suppose this runs parallel actually with that question. Are there particular moments in your career where you feel that you have been able to be noticed within a team, progress your career as an individual, and what were there any other skills that you felt or things that you did to bring that? Or would you say humility is the big one, and an awareness of your team?
I think humility is one, a team player is another one, and then be brave. So I say the world is for the ones who are really brave. And that's the reason why I have been changing so many times across companies and roles. I think something that has made me grow in my professional career is change. So not being afraid of change, pushing for the change to happen. And that has allowed me to go around, move around, learn a lot, and going and escalating, going up in the organization. And I think that has changed. I think humility and not being afraid of change.
On that note, where will you be? What are your career ambitions moving forwards, and where would you like to see your own career developing towards?
So right now I'm having a lot of fun in my current role, and I'm managing a big team. So for me, some next steps is to grow the team. So for me, something really important is to be able to get a team and be able to see how the team grows. be able to coach them to make them grow across the organization as professionals, as in the personal side too. So that's one of my key goals in the near future. And then in the medium term, I would love to keep this kind of flexible journey. So moving around, I want to keep learning from other places, from other roles, from other cultures. And I will definitely would like to stay in my kind of in an innovative field. So I don't know where, but I want to keep innovating every day. I want to be part of the and make my part of the world change. So I want to keep in this kind of direction.
Fantastic. Miriam, you speak about running your team and having a big team there. So you're obviously involved in the recruitment of your team. From that point of view now, as somebody employing a team, what are the particular skills and qualities that you are looking for in your employees?
So we are looking for dynamic people with a lot of resilience. So the change is everywhere, right? So think about this time last year. Who could have imagined what we have lived in this year? So actually this year in March, we started a big project and it started virtually, directly. So we need people who can make sure that if they face a problem and a challenge, they can overcome that. So I'm looking for dynamic people that can do A, but tomorrow can do B, because actually that's how the business has driven us. I think it's really important to have experience. So when we recruit for junior roles, it is important to see that the students have been proactive enough to join some internships in the uni, for example, during summer, just to see they're really looking after and trying to find their pathway into the professional life. It's also important to see that if we recruit for more senior roles, that people keep evolving along their career and they keep learning and they keep joining courses and growing their background in different fields. So I think that's in general, like without being specific on the skill set, on the technical ones, that's what we are looking for.
Fantastic. I think that probably applies to many, many careers. I think resilience and creativity and flexibility are the things that I hear from sort of pretty much everybody. And I think they are skills and talents that will take anybody a very long way. Ladies and gentlemen, does anybody have any questions for Miriam? Any specific questions? Oh, right. I have a question here. I'm asking, have you ever worked with chemical engineers? And if so, what kind of work do they do at BP?
Yes. So when I was in the refinery, I was the weird one. So they were asking me, what is like an electrical engineer and computer science doing here? We need chemical engineers. So in a refinery, most of the people are chemical engineers. The reason why is because you need to understand what's happening, all the reactions happening into the pipes in the refinery. You need to understand what's going to happen if you increase the pressure of one unit by whatever. So you need to understand what's going to happen before it happens, because as I said before, the impact that you can make is massive and a lot of zeros if you do something wrong. So yeah, they do from working in the lab. So working in the lab and taking samples and understanding if everything is running smoothly in the refinery, to really defining the processes and understanding the processes inside the units of the refinery, looking if there's more degradation in any of the units before anything happens. So understanding how the different elements, because now in this new world we need to innovate. So we also innovate in the refinery, and we include new products, new crudes. So how the new crude is going to impact my piping? Is that going to make an impact in the material? Is that going to be fine or not in the final product? So all that is the amazing world of the chemical engineers.
And do they have a role within electricity and electrical power with things like battery development and things like that?
Exactly. So that's on the new part. So BP is not working directly with manufacturing batteries. But if you think about the electric vehicle, so the battery is the 40% of the price of an electric vehicle. And the reason why is because it is one of the most important parts of it. So definitely chemical engineers work, for example, in Tesla, the famous gigafactories, they're rolling out everywhere. So yeah, we don't work in that specific field. We have part of the team that they are the experts on batteries. that are chemical engineers, but we don't manufacture.
Brilliant. Any more questions for Miriam, folks, before we wrap up? But thank you so much. It's really interesting to hear about your career path, and you've had such a varied and dynamic career yourself, and I'm sure that that will be very inspirational. I wanted to ask you, what musical instruments do you play? I
play the viola, so that's a little bit bigger than the violin, and I keep playing it. So the highlight of London, my life in London, is that I was able to join an orchestra, and I have been playing in an orchestra for the last 2 years.
Oh, fantastic. And I'm sure that has been something that's kept you going through lockdown as well.
Yes. Yeah, well, that was what I have missed more during the lockdown, not being able to join my colleagues in the orchestra.
Miriam, again, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. It's been fascinating speaking to you on a personal level. I've really enjoyed it. And thank you, and have a very Merry Christmas. I hope you get back to Spain okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
And thank you to everybody who's listened, and to everyone who is going to be listening to this. Oh, hang on. We've got more. Hang on.
Please, yes.
Do you think that in the future there will be a role for chemical engineers at BP?
I mean, definitely. So both in the refineries and if we keep growing on the electric side, we will need more people with more expertise in batteries, because I think it is clear that that's the future of transportation. So definitely, yes. But it's not only in BP, in the energy world. The chemical engineers can work in pharmaceuticals that are really trendy now with all the vaccines, etc. So yeah, chemical engineers will be required everywhere.
Still a lot of scope, regardless of the changes in the way in which we are powering our world. Any other questions coming? They just say thank you very much. Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you for taking part, and thank you to everyone who's going to listen to this in our recorded version as well. Bye-bye, good night, and a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes, Merry Christmas. Thank you. Bye.